I call the Charlottesville City Council December 15th, 2025 meeting to order. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilor Oshrin,
Present.
Councilor Payne,
Here.
Vice Mayor Pinkston,
Here.
Councilor Snook,
Here.
Mayor Wade.
Here. Is there a motion to approve or amend the proposed agenda?
I move its approval.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes. Yes.
All opposed, please say no. Motion passes 5-0. Our meeting today will be divided into three sections. The first will be now work session, where we will discuss presentations that do not require a council vote, and then we'll have closed sessions, a closed session, and then we will come back at 6:30 for our regular business meeting. And today we're going to switch it up a little bit. We're going to start off with the emergency management update by John O'Prandy.
All right. Good afternoon, City Manager Sanders, Mayor and Council.
Good afternoon.
I appreciate the time and this opportunity this afternoon. I'm John O'Prandy, the city's emergency management coordinator, and though you all are all well aware of what it is that I do get the question a lot, what does the EM coordinator do? And so I do have a little bit of an elevator speech, if you will, that I use. It's pretty much on the screen before you. Essentially, develop and update emergency plans, train and exercise those plans, run the city's emergency operations center, and coordinate at a state, local, federal level whenever we are operating in that atmosphere. So, and all that is to help the community withstand and recover from disruptions. Two such plans are the emergency operations plan and the continuity plans that we have in the city, which are both foundational to our success. The EOP outlines the city's response and recovery from incidents impacting the community at large, and then continuity plans ensure that the city's essential functions can continue despite some sort of a disruption, such as a disaster. And when I was last before you for a work session, I gave you some brief information that I'd be exploring some of our policies and our plans, our emergency plans and procedures. And so part of this is just giving you a little bit of an update of where we are on that, what my findings were. And these two plans, particularly the EOP and our continuity plans, are in good shape. The continuity planning just went through a cycle of revision, and we had a training early in November that set the citywide continuity plan and all of the individual continuity plans for each of the departments and offices in place. That revision went pretty well. So though we do have some exercising and training that will go on indefinitely, those plans are at least are in place. In terms of the EOP, the emergency operations plan, that's in good shape as well. There are some things that I have identified that I'd like to make some changes on, and I'll be doing that over the next several months. So specifically, I'm going to work to clarify the roles and responsibilities that are outlined in the EOP. Frankly, there should be no question in the midst of an emergency who's responsible for what. The EOP does lay out those responsibilities, but I think in some cases it's a little bit ambiguous, so I want to tighten that up and make that crystal clear. So we'll do that work. In addition, we're going to update what's called the concept of operations within the EOP, and I want to make the emergency operations that we partake in within the Emergency Operations Center look a lot like our daily operations to the extent possible. We're all human, and what we do day in and day out is a lot easier to continue versus trying to try on a new structure or a new way of doing business. So I'm going to align those as much as possible through that concept of operations, and I'll be working with staff to do that over the next several months. Some other good stuff, if you will, that I found. We have a shelter operations plan. That's in good shape. We have a city multi-agency coordination group, or MAC group. That is also known as the policy group. That was in existence. We made some minor policy adjustments, but that group is up and running and is the leadership of the city during an emergency and run by City Manager Sanders. We have Resilient Together. They're working and kind of leading some efforts within the community to help the community through adapting and building resilience for climate change and significant weather events that occur. That lines up with emergency management in terms of preparing the community for those types of things. So I've established relationships with them. I actually had already had those relationships before coming here, so really just kind of approaching it from a different perspective. So that work continues, and that's great. You've established internal and external emergency communications systems, public information and warning. We have that through the ECC, through CUA 911 alerts. Some work we need to do there to make sure that everyone is signing up for that, but we will continue that. But that is a great system and is in place. And then internally, Civic Ready for the staff within the city so that we can make emergency notifications to staff. We have a safety committee in the city. I thought that was fantastic. I have my offices in city space. And so as people come in and out of city space conducting different activities, one that I have seen quite a bit of is the safety committee at work, training our staff on being ready and resilient, preparedness, CPR courses, and I thought that was fabulous. And we are participating as the Office of Emergency Management in that work as well. We have a seat at that table, so that's good. Local Emergency Planning Committee, that was defunct for a while, is back up and running, and has met, meets quarterly and has already met 3 or 4 times, and is being led through the Emergency Communications Center through their liaison. So that's great as well. Sorry. So, sorry, that got slightly out of order. I'll back up to that. So first I want to talk a little bit about investing in our capabilities, where we're headed. We are going to focus on some improvements over the next 6 months. Beyond that as well, but I'm hyper-focused over the next 6 months on development of the city's incident management team, training EOC staff members, and then doing some practicing, training and exercise at all levels. So I'd like to touch on each of those real quickly. The city incident management team that we're going to establish, an incident management team, or an IMT, in the simplest of terms, is simply a team that comes together that has a lot of expertise in focusing out 12 or 24 hours in the midst of a disaster and bringing a group through a planning process to prepare for managing that disaster in the future. When we're in the midst of operating in the EOC with staff that's in there, we are focused 10, 20 minutes, half an hour, maybe 2 hours down the road, and we're handling that disaster. If we don't focus beyond that, then we run the risk of not being prepared 12, 24 hours from now. We don't have the resources that take a while to get here. We haven't taken the time to figure out what resources we need to order. So that incident management team is a team of experts that can focus on pulling that group up to a higher level for a short period of time, bringing them through a planning process, and then leaving and writing that incident action plan while they continue to manage the operations that are ongoing. So that's important ability for us to have. By mid-June, my goal is to have at least 20 members, we need more than that, but at least 20 members by mid-June who have been through preliminary team training. And then we're going to invest within that group. We need a small number of folks that are going to be part of a regional state team. And they'll travel to areas outside of the city, outside of this region, to gain some expertise and knowledge. The Central Virginia Incident Management Team is the group that we will be participating with. And the reason we'll do that is twofold. One, it provides that small group of folks the training, a level of training, expertise, development and the ability to deploy to emergencies outside of this area so that they can bring that information and knowledge and what they've learned back here to the city and then train and mentor the rest of the people on our team. And then the other thing that does is that it exposes our folks to emergencies. Lessons learned in other areas, other localities that they can then bring back here and share with us, and we can adjust our plans and our training and our teamwork so that we have already made adjustments for that. Just this past weekend, I've received, as a member of the Central Virginia team, a deployment request to Washington State, where there is a lot of flooding going on right now. So they were looking for some team members to go out there for a couple of weeks. So that's the type of deployment we might be able to take advantage of and bring that information back here. My vision is for this team to be a regional team, even at the local level. So the city will invest in that, the county is already investing in it, the university. We can come together and share that group of IMT members so that we all can rely on each other in the midst of some sort of an emergency to develop that team at that local level. Training EOC staff members within the next 30 days. Departments will actually identify specific EOC members to respond in when we activate the EOC. By early April, our goal is to have at least 80% of staff, including those EOC members, through the National Incident Management System training that's required. And then most staff across the city, that's going to mean about 6 to 12 hours of training behind a computer. It's all virtual training that they can get for that baseline level. Some staff have it, others do not, so we're going to bring that up to compliance.
And how frequent is that, annually or two?
One time. Once you're certified, you do not have to recertify. The reality of that is that the ICS training is something that is perishable. And so that's why the training and exercise, the exercise portion of drilling and doing some regular activations is going to be really important. If we continue that, then that baseline training is sufficient.
Yeah.
And then there are some public safety staff that will actually go through a 24-hour course in addition to that we're going to host here. We're going to co-host it with the county. It's already scheduled for mid-March, and we're going to have some public safety staff focus on that. And then finally, the EOC training and exercise. We've got 3 training or exercises already planned. I have an EOC workshop that's scheduled for late March, and I anticipate that my goal is that 90% of the EOC staff that we identify will participate in that 2-day workshop. Before the end of the fiscal year, we'll have conducted an incident management team training or exercise that will also support the EOC. And then I've applied for, and then we received recently, a Virginia Department of Emergency Management Technical Assistance Grant. There's no match required for that. It's the use of VDEM staff to conduct an exercise here locally, as well as VDEM contractors. So we're going to, in the fall of 2026, we're going to do a sheltering exercise. We're actually, my guess is we'll use this Charlottesville High School to do this, but we'll actually do, we'll open that as a shelter and have DSS staff and other staff there in support of that and fully open it and exercise that opening component. All right, so dropping back, I recognize that that all sounds great, but it's all stuff that's down the road, at least 3-6 months or even longer. What happens if we have to activate today? So I wanted to quickly cover an example of what that looks like so that you know that we've got that covered as well. Hypothetically, a ice storm is coming in on a random Sunday. It's freezing cold. We have a wind chill. It's probably much like the temperature was yesterday, only we've added ice and snow to that. And then we have power outages. Power outages is probably the biggest vulnerability that we have in an ice storm like that. Once that power loss occurs, I contact Dominion. They let me know we're looking at 3 or 5 days for some reason before we get power back on to 40% of the city. We obviously have a problem, so I begin making notifications through our VOC system. and I make that first through the city MAC, or our policy group. They come together. We talk about the fact that we may need to operate the EOC. We make the decision to activate it. I send out notifications to that EOC staff, and then they will come together either virtually if possible, but in this case, we don't have power in the area, so it may be that we actually have to physically come together at the city EOC over in city space. The city MAC then will coordinate with the county and the university, and we'll have regular meetings with that policy group so that at that regional level, we are coordinating. And then the EOC goes to work. They come together. Our EOP right now identifies that DSS has a role in opening shelters and warming centers, and that they coordinate that with the county. So that's what we would be running within the EOC. They'd be in there. We might have to put people up in a shelter. We might have to put folks into hotel rooms. We'll make those decisions and plans within that EOC. The other thing we'll be focused on is, in the midst of that, making sure that we are getting consistent and factual information on the situation and what we're doing to resolve it to the leadership, to the city MAC, to the city manager, and then ultimately to you all as well, so that you can share that with your constituents. So, kind of summing that up, key takeaways. These plans are in place. They're solid. We're going to lean into exercising them, and that's going to help us a lot. We want to practice so that those emergency operations become second nature. We're doing a lot of training and development over the next year and beyond that. So I thank City Manager Sanders for placing a priority on it, and I thank you, Council, for your support as well. No matter how good we are, though, at the end, disasters are chaotic, and they require a lot of time to mitigate. We need individuals and the community to be prepared. So that is certainly a takeaway from today. Even our plans call for people to be prepared to take care of themselves for at least 72 hours. Our resources in something significant will be depleted, and we'll be waiting and relying on bringing in resources from outside the area. So individuals must be prepared. We must do the work to help them be prepared. And those who feel they are prepared should be focused on knocking on their neighbors' doors and making sure that their neighbors are prepared as well. So, Mr. Mayor, councilors, I know you all are very active and you're an informed council. You're vital in connecting with the community and setting the tone for our response and our recovery. And so I certainly appreciate that. I pledge to ensure that we're giving you the information that you need to do that. And I trust that you'll identify and advocate for the needs that you identify in the community through City Manager Sanders. So that's all I have for you today. I'll take any questions now, or you obviously can contact me at any point in time, but thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, John. I'll get comments from council, but as we talked before, I think that this is vital for local government. Many times, the only time the public will look towards their leaders is in an emergency, and so we must be prepared and show that we have our ducks in a row, and so I feel confident that we do. So thank you so much. I'll start with you, Michael, if you have any comments.
Yeah, no questions, but just for the public, 2 comments. And agreement, I think, this is really important work, and I know this is the kind of work that's easy to, for local governments to put on the back burner until, that crisis moments happens, and then, everyone regrets there wasn't as much planning years ahead. But the comments, the first is obviously the biggest emergency planning failure we've had in recent years was August 11th and 12th, 2017, where there were failures of communication and operational planning on multiple levels. And I know everyone is familiar with the HEFI report as well as other documents that made various recommendations about what went wrong and what could be improved going forward. And some of that, I think, is addressed in what you talked about. I think things like the exercises you mentioned will be helpful. But I think that's, everyone who was in a decision-making role when that happened is no longer here. So some of that institutional memory of it has faded, but I certainly think for the community it's kind of the biggest memory of what failed, and I think still more to prove that we've incorporated all the lessons that we could have from it. And the second comment is just in the in the information in our packet, and it was emailed to us ahead of time, that the two largest risks that are identified are hurricanes and tropical storms, as well as flooding. And I just continuously always want to highlight that, because I do think that is our biggest risk. If we have even a tropical storm that's fairly weak that takes a path through central Virginia, there's a high likelihood Scottsville's levee could become overwhelmed. You're going to see extensive flooding in both Charlottesville and Albemarle. And so not just an emergency, the kind of emergency management planning you're doing, but I hope as we think about our policy decisions across the board, we're thinking about them being part of emergency management planning, even if there's a time lag of 10 or 15 years between a policy decision we made about impervious surfaces and when that tropical storm event happens, because it is going to happen, and climate change makes it more likely that it will happen. So.
Natalie?
Thank you for the presentation and for briefing us. I've got a couple of just questions that you've covered lightly, but I would like kind of a little bit of an expansion. Can you talk more about who comprises the team? And are they people from other departments coming together? Are they specific for this? Kind of how big is the team and who's going to be there?
The incident management team? Yeah, right now, I am going to be starting next week recruiting for the incident management team. We need at least 30 people total to fill all of the positions, all of the roles that are on that team, and to provide some level of redundancy. My goal is to at least get 20 up and running by the 6-month mark, and then have a team training. Ideally, that is a makeup of folks across the organization. Not only public safety. Public safety staff typically have the best grasp of ICS because they deal with it on a daily basis, but they are also everyone that's going to be on the front lines, and it's hard to grab them to then help manage. So if we can bring other folks up to speed that may not have a frontline role in the midst of a disaster with ICS, then they could participate on this team and provide a great benefit to us. And free up that public safety person. But we will need some public safety staff to be on it. There was a second part to your question.
Well, that was how big and who is it made of, so that answered it. Yeah,
so
thanks.
I'm really trying to target some folks that are outside of public safety to balance that.
Great. And then what supplies are we going to need that we don't currently have? Not ones that I know we'll be able to get, if it's a really big disaster and there's a big state of emergency, we'll be able to get supplies from elsewhere, big stuff. But what stuff do we need now that we might need to stockpile or have on hand for something more local?
Yeah, that's a great question. I know that they have already done some work in the Office of Emergency Management to bring in some supplies and things that are necessary to support the EOC itself and managing that. I think I would probably like to continue to kind of evaluate that over time and get back to you with maybe some ideas of some of the things that we might need. The reality is I've not identified anything in the last 3 months that jumps out at me as something that we should have and we don't. We have public safety, fire department, police department, public works that have a lot of tools and equipment that they use on a daily basis for a number of different things that they will also pull together and use in the midst of a disaster. So I've not found any glaring gap, but I'm sure there are some redundancies that we'll identify and some backup equipment that might be necessary that I'm just not aware of.
Okay, but there's currently not a dire need for this one type of thing.
Not that I've come across yet, no.
That's good to hear. And then can you talk a little bit more about the communication with residents and the mass alert system? How do people sign up for that? What is the plan to get messages out to people as needed, and just kind of a little more about that kind of community
Yes.
communication would be great.
I will. Let me back up for a split second, because it just occurred to me that one thing I did identify, but I've already kind of worked on it through the city manager's office as part of the budget process, was we don't have some equipment and supplies for pet sheltering. So I have put a plan together along with my assistant Brent to address that gap. It's not a significant gap in terms of dollars, but it is something that we are required to do, is shelter people and pets together. And so we have identified that, and that's in play now and being worked on.
Oh, great.
And then some other things that you guys have identified in the past, the meridian barriers is something that has been talked about, and I think is going to be something that is discussed again. So that may be something, but outside of those that have already been kind of identified in the budget process, I don't see anything else.
If you could just for the public and my edification as well, the Meridian Barrier, what is that again?
Yeah, so it is right now, when we have an event like we just had the grand illumination, and we use public works trucks and staff to block the intersections where we need to make sure that vehicles cannot get down into a crowded area. These are, in place of that setup, these are barriers that we can put in place that are built to withstand a vehicle impact, so that we don't have to have staff every time. Yeah. And I'm sorry.
Communication.
Yes, so the process for signing up for that, it's run out of the Emergency Communications Center, ECC, and if you go to CUA 911 alerts, or you search CUA, which is Charlottesville University Albemarle 911 alerts, that will bring up a page that guides our residents through the process of signing up for alerts. And we need to be pushing this information out regularly. It's a opt-in system, so people go through that sign-up process. They register their cellular phone, and that enables us to quickly contact the ECC from the street as a police commander or fire commander, contact the ECC and say, we need this public information and warning to go out. The ECC has that, and they'll send out that information. We're going to be working, we right now are in the process of putting together a plan to script some of that messaging across the city, county, and university so that it is consistent, understood, and something that we can push out to the residents of all three areas with a little more consistency.
Okay, great. So there is the text system, and then is there, I assume there's probably a plan for like a website pop-up, an Instagram post, all of those other things are part of the communications process as well?
That's another good question. I believe so, but I have to admit, I am not an expert on our rave system. My understanding is it will do text, it will do pop-ups, it has the capability to even do some public information and warning for specific local events. So we're exploring the idea of being able to communicate to a crowd of folks that might be downtown for a specific event or something. But the nuances of that, I would have to engage with the ECC. They run that system and have them probably address that.
Okay, thank you. That's what I've got at the moment.
Brian?
No questions, thank you.
Yeah, I have, my first question is as you're planning for various environmental disasters, is Ravenna Water and Sewer Authority involved in your planning as well?
Yes, yes,
Obviously, their dams are upstream of us.
yes,
We
yes.
want to make sure that that's taken care of.
Yes, in fact, because of a number of reasons, with my work with the county, I have a great relationship and a tremendous amount of respect for the engineers over at Ravenna Water and Sewer. And so we went through a FEMA technical assistance program as a county, and I participated in a number of different meetings and got an education and a great relationship with the staff at Ravenna Water and Sewer. And so some of the work that we were doing relative to the dams, the warning systems at Sugar Hollow relative to the rest of the folks that live downstream from there, all helped me create a good relationship with them. They will be involved in our mitigation planning through the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission. And we do a risk analysis every 5 years. They'll be involved in that as well. So I think if that answers your question, they're involved, and I feel like I have a really good relationship with them.
Of course, the RWSA experienced something a couple of years ago in the storm that nobody anticipated when their pumps failed because something overflowed, and I don't remember all the details. The important thing is the engineers figured it out, but in the meantime, it was a good week or so during which that facility wasn't processing, wasn't cleaning our water, at least not much. And one of the things that tells us is that there's always something else out there that you hadn't thought of. And one of your tasks is to try to rack your brain to think of is there something we're leaving out? So you don't want to have a failure of imagination. The second thing I just wanted to mention, by the way, that in my experience, and if I'm recalling the situation correctly, my wife has tried a number of times to sign up for the CUA notification system. It will not go on my home phone. It doesn't work well with VoIP systems.
Okay.
And one of the things that happens is they'll say, we're going to call you and you have to pick up the phone and hit a button to acknowledge that you've received it. And for some reason, it doesn't get where it's supposed to get to in the VoIP system. So if you talk to some people who are really experts on telephone things, see if you can figure out with them why it is that that's happening.
Okay, I'll get some more information on that. I've not heard that, but I can contact the ECC and find out.
So I have no idea what's going on in Charlottesville because I don't get your alerts.
Okay. Yeah, that's a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I did just sign up on my cell phone and it went through smoothly, so that's also
Perfect.
the cell phone part works, I guess the landline might
VoIP
not.
at home
Yeah.
doesn't for us.
Yeah.
And that may be, let me find out some more information.
And it's not unique to you, by the way. I also find that the callback systems like at the doctor's offices, so they get lost somehow. I don't know how it is, but there's some technology out there that surely somebody understands better than I do to say, oh,
Yeah.
we got a problem there.
Yeah, I will definitely look into that and get back
Thank
to you.
you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate your
Thank you
work.
all. Yep, appreciate the
Um,
questions. Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is the city manager will present the housing budget brief.
All right, good evening, Mayor, council, members of the public. This is part 3 of 3, so I'm done after tonight. Budget briefs, this one being focused on affordable housing. Wanted to make sure that we spent some time on this particular topic because it is a big part of your budget. And in putting it together, there are a number of people in the room today who are here to help answer questions because I don't have all the answers, even though people believe that I do. Just to remind you.
Reassuring if I told you we didn't believe that.
I know you don't. It's fine. I try to have all the answers, but I do lean on so many others to help me make sure I have them and that they're correct. The budget drivers for FY27 budget, as you would anticipate, are transportation, affordable housing, and schools. But we always make sure we leave public safety in that list as well because it's important for the public to hear and understand that we are working on this issue at all times, even if it is not the lion's share of what makes up the budget. And then the city schools item I added public safety, therefore making it 4 drivers instead of 3, because the schools part is to be determined, which you all should recall that you have a meeting on Thursday, joint meeting with school board, and that is them giving you a preview of their needs so that we begin to have the rest of the budget begin to take shape with that ask. So I'm going to walk you through a series of things that we've identified that are associated with this budget that are either in the budget, being talked around the budget conversation as it stands right now, and new items that have started to materialize that are associated with things that are already in the budget, therefore projects that are stuck, getting stuck, or approaching stuck. And all of them have a financial impact, which is why they are a part of this presentation. So we'll look at production within the housing, with the Redevelopment and Housing Authority, CRHA. Under construction today, you have two projects that have received funding from the city. South First Street Phase 2 is $6 million in it, and 6th Street Phase 1 has $3 million in it. And there's been a commitment of $15 million in West Haven redevelopment, of which the first $5 million was slated for this year. Okay, I'm looking at Chrissy for shaking her head. This year. So over the next 2 years, there'll be $5 million each for that $15 million commitment. Under construction as well in Piedmont Housing Alliance portfolio, you have Kendallwood Phase 2. We're doing the planning work right now, or waiting for the planning work to come back in regards to Park Street Maca, which is $3.7 million, and then Park Street as well for $2.25 million. There's planning that's continuing to be done on 501 Cherry. Today, the commitment has been $3.15 million, and then Phase 3 of Kendallwood is $4.15 million. These are all in your budget, already reflected items indicating the supports that we've committed to affordable housing with this particular partner. And then we have additional not-for-profit arrangements that are in play. Vista 29 will receive a total of $936,000 from the city in support for permanent supportive housing for Vista 29, which is the former Premier Circle that is under construction as we speak. And then the Carlton Mobile Home Park, the $8.7 million that you see there is just an acquisition and loan servicing. So that's the act of getting the property under our control and servicing the loan that was used to purchase that property. It is not about construction of units. That is to be determined. And at this moment, we just know that this is to replace the 60 units with a significantly larger affordable housing development that will come in the future. Again, already in your budget and reflected as one of the changes in your CIP for how we've had to adjust for the loan servicing terms. This is your chance, this is your first chance of being able to see what came in during the NOFA round. Even though I was on vacation last week, I did take in the public hearing on the CIP. I had a few comments to myself. But just want to point out to you that even though there's an expression of we don't have a process, I take issue with that because we do have a process. The process is that within the NOFA that is released, the annual affordable housing NOFA that is released each year, one of the deadlines is a request for information on development projects, and that is a chance for any developer who is interested in seeing if the city would consider an investment to respond to. These are the three projects that responded this cycle. Each of them has made a request. We've identified those for you. Community Services Housing has identified a request for $900,000 to produce 40 units of 40 to 60% AMI units, which is a LIHTC rehab of a multifamily property serving persons with disabilities. Brick Lane Better Communities is a hotel mixed income conversion, and I think that is the Holiday Inn. Yes. The Holiday Inn on Emmett Street conversion from the Holiday Inn to a multifamily project. They're requesting $1.75 million for 192 units ranging from 60% AMI to market rate. So that's something else for us to now consider. And then the third request is POA, Preservation of Affordable Housing. This is the partnership with the University of Virginia property on Wordland. $3 million is requested here for 170 units. This is a process of which now, me sharing this with you, our goal would be to begin to have conversations with you on what do you feel about prioritizing these considerations for the budget. If you would like to see them funded in the budget, that now means that myself and Ms. Hamill and others have to go and try to figure out where it fits, how it fits, what it costs, and can we determine affordability of being able to do so. And if there is a reason that you can clearly indicate as to why you would not support the projects, then we would like your assistance in that so that we can notify parties. Because they have responded to the RFI, which was a part of the NOFA process, and we now need to be able to respond back to them with an indication of support or not. And then the note at the bottom is to indicate to you that our team has identified that because there are criticisms of the process, we are going to spend a little time looking at additional steps we might take to kind of beef it up. But ideally, the intention was that in the NOFA round is where we would find out what other interests there may be, and there's no prohibition as to who can submit. They can submit whatever project that they have that's in the affordable housing arena, and then they provide that information. We receive that, and again, we produce this particular slide or multiple slides is what the plan will be going forward. We've been doing this now for 2 years. Okay, keep going.
Can you clarify
Oh, I knew somebody might say something. Yes.
the acronym you're using?
Acronym,
NOFA?
NOFA, Notice of Funding Availability or Opportunity.
Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
sorry.
Thank you.
I'll try not to do that.
I can say that's for the general public's information, but also for mine.
So that
Thank
is,
you.
and I'll just go further. So what we do is in October, August of each year, we identify a series of opportunities where individuals can submit a request for funding. And they are basically responding to requests for proposals. And there's just a series of them for the CAF, the Charlottesville Affordable Housing Fund, for the HOPS,
And CDBG and
Community Development Block Grant, and Vibrant Communities for housing assistance for operating support, HOPS. Those are all individual opportunities to respond with the project requesting support. The RFI, the request for interest, I thought it was investment. Is it interest?
request for
Information,
information.
but it's a request for investment is really what it is. So that round is a chance for individuals that are working on development projects to also say, hey, we have a project, it's an affordable housing project, it meets the priorities of what we understand council would like to see, and we would like to have you consider making an investment to make it possible for us to move this project forward. It may be a LIHTC project, and in some cases, it may not be.
Okay, and so I know currently there's no shortage of requests.
Yes.
But it is a request-based process.
Correct. Yes. And to that point, so naturally, I'm not asking you to say yes, yes, no, no, yes, no, or anything like that, because I have many more slides. And there are other things that are not in your budget at this point. These are the first 3 things that are not in your budget today. And I have multiple things that are coming up that are also not in your budget. So that's the tension and the trade-off conversation that we started earlier this year.
Yeah, that question was more of like for putting together our housing policy for the process of like, how do we want to spend
Yes.
X dollars that are coming in?
Right.
That's a request-based process, not a city-led process.
Yes, I'd say that is most accurate. I think part of what we're trying to get to is maybe a hybrid approach. I think it's important for us to figure out ways that we can engage you all in discussions, and it may be that we have a special engagement each year where you get to talk about priorities specifically, looking at results. You'll get your affordable housing presentation, I think is in April when we normally do that. That's when we give you the results-oriented discussion as to how we've been able to reach the targets and where we've missed the mark or what have you. Then taking that information and driving priorities from that so that then you could start to put out a RFI that says, we're looking for projects that reach this for this number of people by this date, and then no one else need apply. I mean, you could always turn it into
And
that
that's
if
what we
you
would
wanted to.
shape.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
So, go ahead.
While you're on this page, is there a specific proposal for community services housing?
Yes. This is the information that we received. How much more detail do we have?
I have, actually, it's all available on our website, all of their full application packets.
So that's what our next step is going to be, is to get you this information so that you can have a full appreciation for the ask.
And what is the
Because
website reference?
that's on the city's website. If you go on.
Big website.
Is it NDS's page?
Yeah, probably want to just.
We'll get you the link. How about that?
A lot of clicks to
Yeah.
get.
It's on the NDS page because the housing program is now back in NDS.
So, Sam, you had mentioned that you wanted whether we want to include this in the budget. Do you want that now? Or
No.
we're going to have a work session?
Nope.
Or something?
We'll
or-
get the information, we'll get you the details. I think what Councilor Snook is looking at, he's interested in going to see the projects. We're going to get you the link so that you can do that. But I need to give you more stuff to wrestle with because that's my job.
Since
Yeah.
all 3 of these are new to us.
Correct.
At least new to me.
That's
they-
right. That's right, they are.
So just for clarification, because we get information on deeply affordable to 30% and less, these are proposals that private developers essentially, or quasi-public,
Or nonprofits,
or
it could be any
nonprofits,
of them, yeah.
that they have presented to the city to say, hey, we want, to use your funds for this program to help construct.
Right. CRHA can come in through this round. If there was a new development project that they were planning, this is what we would now ask them to do. This wasn't always the way we've done it in the past. Piedmont Housing Alliance, for any new project that they would consider, we would ask them to come into this round as well. This is a way for us to kind of forecast what's coming. Not every project is ready to go today, which is why we do this every year, and we're looking for them to tell us what is the status of your project, when is it likely to start, and to give us updates along the way.
Got it.
And that's for planning purposes, of course.
Thank you.
All right, so here are the requests. These are things that are beginning to mount up in the projects that exist today, kind of giving you now the indications as to why some of them are stuck and how we've been engaged in conversations as to ways to get them unstuck. 501 Cherry is a project that you've already supported. As I showed you on the screen before, I think the number, if I remember correctly, was $3.15 million. There is a gap. There has been considerable effort to work to eliminate the gap that exists, which is why there has been no movement on the site. The request that has recently come in from PHA in making this project possible is now an additional $700,000 in addition to the $1 million performance grant, so that this would make it possible for the project to move forward. And the increased request is in association with the proposed grocery store that would go on the property. This would be still supporting the development, which is right now stuck because your investment is into the residential units that would come from this project. You would now be supporting the possibility of the grocery store joining those units on site with the other features of this project.
But to clarify, it's supporting the shell of the commercial
The
space.
shell of the space, basically making it possible for a grocery store. It is not a full commitment that there will be a store because the team that is working on that still has significant work to do. And while all bets are on the idea that we would see a grocery store and many would like to see a grocery store, there's not an ability to commit to that at this time. But there's work in progress, though.
So the shell of a commercial space that potentially
That would be reserved
used.
right now for the grocery store and then could be used temporarily in place of them being there, just to help fund things until they are ready.
Okay.
So it's more or less producing what I describe as a runway, gives the food co-op a runway to continue their work without the pressure of finding the money first for a space that they can't operate in. This just guarantees that a space will eventually be available should they find the need to use that space.
And would it be paid back or would it be a grant?
It will be a grant.
Thanks.
So that's one request that has now materialized. In addition to that, Kendallwood Phase 4. Kendallwood is a very complicated project. I've been talking about this my whole tenure here, about how complicated this project is. I could have seen that from day one. And I think what we have found is that over each phase, we've had to come back to the drawing board to figure out what next. And most of it is because we're just in a time that things are changing so rapidly. And it's very expensive to do the things that we have dreamed of being able to do here. We currently have $4.5 million committed in the CIP for Phase 4. There is a $3 million funding gap to get to the number of units that are expected based on the original agreement. We would need them to produce 131 units in Phase 4, which would give us a total of 425, which is the bottom of the range that we asked them to commit to. But with no additional funding, there is an indication that they do not see being able to deliver the 425 units, so that would now be 388 instead. We know that this is going to require some conversation. We're reworking our work session schedule, the first wave of your work session discussions for the new year, to try to make it possible for this conversation, because I think the way we all look at Kendallwood is the city has deeply invested in this project, which means that it ranks differently than a lot of other projects that you have made some investments in. So we need some reconciliation on, are you okay not having 425 units delivered? Are you going to insist on there being 425 units being delivered? And if you are going to insist, are you willing to help close the gap to make that possible? Because as it stands right now, we're at a crossroads. So that's me being pretty simple and trying to be accurate as to where we stand at this present time. So there's more to talk about I'm working with the team right now to try to figure out how quickly we can have the conversation, and it's shaping up that we're going to do this as your first meeting in January, because it's that important. So that's
To address Phase 4?
to work through this and a few other hot topic issues, because the time
Timeliness.
is everything.
Yeah.
And we have a number of deadlines in play, and there's things that we need to make sure that you all just get the opportunity to consider and make your decisions. Then I'm going to quickly just kind of give you a little history of where we are, and history meaning history of what the budget is made up of, but this is what you will see in our budget going forward. $1.5 million is contributed annually to the CIP in support of the Affordable Housing Grant Program, which today generates $823,000 in direct grants out each year. The Housing Operations and Program Support, HOPS program, is $575,000. It also hits the street in the form of grants to nonprofit organizations that are doing housing-related work. And then we have administrative expenses, which is a part of your affordable housing plan. That's the hybrid approach to being able to say that you have a $10 million commitment, and how are the funds then divided up to support the work that you're doing. But we have requests from the staff. We are processing these requests now as we're building the budget for legal support, additional studies, as well as professional fees associated with tax abatement study and updates to our ADA manual. Those are just things that'll be part of the makeup of the budget, but I just wanted to be able to touch on that with you as well, as the team has pulled together a way for me to give you a snapshot of everything. There's been many references of a strike fund, Councilor Payne specifically, but other members of the Planning Commission have also grabbed hold of the idea of it sure would be nice if we had a strike fund. I have not prioritized the strike fund in this current year's budget. I am struggling to see prioritizing a strike fund in the new fiscal budget, but I do believe what I have offered and will continue to offer as what amounts to a strike fund is your CIP contingency fund. That fund is made up of your surplus dollars, and they get added to each year. The point that I would suggest that you look at the strike fund as a notion is it's the funding that you have available to make the decisions that need to be made at that particular time. That's the strike aspect of it. And it should be associated with how much money you have available, and not necessarily a fund where you just simply put $5 million into it and say, this won't be touched. I think it's hard for me to appreciate how do I get you where you all want to go, where this community wants to go, if I set aside $5 million and say we don't touch it, because I think we always tend to find a way to come close to needing to touch it before you say we're ready to touch it, because the strike isn't there for a housing project, but there are other projects and other desires and other needs that come up. As this whole presentation was coming together, I kept scratching my head as to how much it was going to cost to get through presenting this to you, as to all the requests that have now come in before I first started imagining what this presentation was going to include. What I'm saying in regards to the strike fund is that today there are funds in your CIP contingency. I have not brought to you a need to spend every dollar that is in that account. We have not done that before. We have really tried to discipline ourselves in when we come, how we come, and why we come, to ensure that there's always funds available. I think what we have taken to heart in the references to the need for a strike fund is to try to see if we could develop the relationships with the individuals associated with projects that are likely to come, and see if we can get some indication of how much money might be needed for each of those. And that way we can at least try to anticipate, if one were to come online, how much money is going to be needed to be able to purchase it, take it down, or enter into some kind of partnership. So I'm referencing that we are acknowledging that the Silk Purse portfolio and both of the LIHTC unit projects that are expiring 2026 are things that we will not lose sight of, that could become a possible priority for discussion. And we will bring those back to you if we were to hear about them as being available, or an interest in them shifting out of affordability, and we would want to try to preserve those. And as it stands right now, we do have CIP contingency funds or former surplus funds. Your finance director will begin the process of identifying for you the audit results tonight. And in the first meeting in January, you will hear the actual surplus number. I guess I should say a surplus number because we're always positive. But we don't know what that number is yet, but that is going to be added to what goes into that CIP contingency fund, provided the recommendation that I make to you is approved.
So Sam, Mooreside Forest is not in the county? Or is-
It's in the county, but it's an affordable housing project that we think is important enough for us to not lose sight of, because it's naturally occurring affordable housing as it stands today.
Would there be county regional cooperation?
I think that too is part of the conversation. Like, we have a really good connection with our peers in the county, and if a project were to come forward, I think we both would try to engage in discussions. I think we all know that we're more situated to try to buy something in total versus not. So that might make it difficult to see where the county will join us, but I think we should give them the opportunity every time, especially if it's a property that's in the county.
And if we, for the Silk Road for the Silk First portfolio, you said we'd wait and see. Is there any active engagement?
There's conversations. I'm aware that CRHA has been in conversation with Jeremy about his portfolio, and that there is a portion of it that might end up being conveyed, and we are in those conversations with John. I've talked to John about this a couple times.
Okay, and
And I think maintaining the relationship is really what I'm getting at, as what's important at this present time.
and if we, would the idea be that if we purchase them either on behalf of one of our agencies or through the city, part of the cost of that would also be the loss of real estate taxes, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And Mooreside has city resident vouchers.
More than likely.
Yeah, probably.
Yep. I would think all of them probably do. I think part of what you're getting at, though, is that's part of the ongoing work. That's the continued work that has to be done. The determining what to do is where we have not yet been able to get to. I also heard reference last week in the CIP, I'm kind of airing my grievances, but there was a reference to us, I guess, being in some turmoil as it relates to our housing program. I will push back on that notion. Madeline is doing a great job carrying what is a platter. Granted that she's carrying a platter right now, but we are fine. We have a vacancy. It's a position that we need to fill. We're going to advertise and get that position filled. We have had conversation about adding capacity. Kelly is very good, like James, at asking for things, so we're going to make sure that we take serious consideration of that and working through that process. But there is no turmoil, I would say. We are working through a process of filling seats and making sure that we can get the capacity added to our team capable of doing some of the things that we just haven't been able to get to. That's been a theme of mine this year, and I'm really supportive of the idea of making sure that our housing program gets to be a little more robust, which I think is really the complaint, and not that it's in turmoil. So,
Thanks.
all right, I'm just going to also, I'll just point out to you, the inclusion of homelessness in this is just to point out that we know that it's expensive, it's going to be a continuous process of us figuring out. You all know that we purchased the 2000 Holiday Drive site. We are in conversation with our partners, our key community partners, on working through what could become of that particular facility. We've been doing all kinds of various work and supports to that community specifically, led by Ashley Marshall, as well as the collaborative approach to bringing in different members of our team to try to figure out softer ways to address various displays of things that have become a challenge. And we're looking at programmatic improvements to some of the things that we're doing, including how some of the funds are being used by some of the partners. We'll continue to do that. I will always have to come back to you and talk to you a little bit more about homelessness specifically, because it's about what are the many things that we're going to keep trying to do. But as it stands right now, I'm not asking for anything else because we're focused on 2000 Holiday Drive. But I can assure you that by the time we finish the program, the budget process, there'll probably some things that will have risen to the surface. We included Home to Hope as a reentry program because, of course, those citizens returning to the community are always subject to difficult situations and sometimes find themselves homeless, and we're continuing to do our work in support of that, as well as looking for even non-traditional ways of partnering with organizations that are serving this population, even who have beds available. There's been a recent offer for us to consider being able to partner with them and seeing if we can help pull certain individuals off the street into those spaces for them to get the supports that they need as a part of their transition. And then we continue to do rental assistance. Our Department of Human Services continue to operate the Community Resource Hotline. They do housing navigation as well. So our Pathways Fund is supporting various needs along the way. We have a lot more things to talk to you about in the future with that. And then the Commissioner of Revenue continues to support our various relief programs. And I'll show you some of those details as well. We have identified a real intervention that is needed as it relates to rental assistance. In Kendallwood specifically, as a part of our ongoing conversations with PHA, we've identified that there are a number of households that have not been able to make their rent payments, and this is despite their income evaluations indicating an ability to pay. From the numerical aspect of it, we're still seeing that individuals are not paying rent. So there's something going on there, and as it stands right now, we have no way of knowing what that is. So one of the requests was to consider a pilot program that would allow for financial coaches to begin working with those households to identify what is happening within the household that is interfering with their ability to pay their rents. And then we would also set up a fund to help clear the arrears for those as we work through resolving some of those issues. This is the kind of work that I've done for a very long time, so I relate to what it takes to get people out of situations like this. So I think this is going to be something that we're going to try to explore and figure out a way to bring back that for your consideration. So just sharing with you that this is a possible future request. And then the SISRAP program, that's the Charlottesville Supplemental Rental Assistance Program. That is the city's voucher program is the best way for us to describe that for you. $900,000 annually. We have that included in the budget as well for FY27. You just recently, I think even tonight, might be finalizing the approval of the continuation of the program. We're going to continue working with the 68 households that are at or below 30% AMI because we see that as a very vulnerable population. And then the question could very easily be, do we change the number and increase it? I will say at the start of this fiscal year, budget planning, I was thinking that that would be the ask that we would make, is to increase the SISRAP program. But based on the various new requests that I've already identified for you and some that I haven't told you about, I'm having difficulty identifying how to do that. So we will see what shakes out by the time we get through the school's presentation on Thursday and a few more details on revenue projections that we're anticipating at the beginning of January. And then I'll just walk through, just for your benefit and for the public's benefit, of seeing how our relief programs are working. So this is the elderly and disabled tax relief program. So 518 people qualify for $1.9 million, as well as 206 in the rent program for $134,000. Those are maximum grants of $2,000. Our affordable housing, the CHAP program, 317 individuals received $610,000 in varying grants of $1,000 to $2,500. And then we have 39 disabled veterans or spouses who received $222,000. So I would suggest that we have a very robust relief and intervention program assigned to those individuals who are having difficulty with our high rate of real estate taxes. And then the last is surviving spouses. We just don't have any individuals that have applied and qualified for the program. But if we were to have some, there are funds available, as Todd has indicated. We could assist them just the same. So I'm going to shift and just remind you of things that are coming up. As we all know, the joint budget meeting is this Thursday, so tune in for those who would like to watch us have that conversation talking about school needs for the next fiscal year. And this year I'm doing something different because I want more people to come and talk to me about the budget so that they can stop telling me I don't know what's going on. So I decided we're going to talk about it on 3 different occasions, 3 nights in a row in 3 different places. So we'll get you those details. I will announce that at the next council meeting so that people will know exactly where they are. I'm anticipating that these would be 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. each of those 3 nights, and we're going to bring the budget to you in the community. Last year, we integrated Monopoly as a part of our process, and I like Monopoly because I like to win. And I like to use that as the visual of how you make choices on spending money. So we're going to use that as a feature of how we unveil our budget and help the public share with us priorities in setting those. And then I will make my infamous budget presentation on March 2nd, and it will be the beginning of the end of my stress of trying to put a fiscal year budget together when we, as a city, punch above our weight class. And I will have all the battle scars for it in trying to pull this budget together and making sure that the numbers add up, because it must be balanced. And then we will adopt that budget on April 9th and get ready for its beginning implementation on July 1st. Questions?
Yes, Sam, the meeting Thursday with school board, is that, I know it's a work session for us, but I can't remember if we take public comment.
I don't think so.
The schools do. The schools usually
The
have a.
schools do, okay.
segment
Oh, yeah,
for that.
that's true, they did, yes. There will be public comment. I'm just remembering now.
Any questions? I thought we.
And I have others here who would love to come to the microphone and talk to you as well, if there's anything specific that you want to know.
Yeah, Michael?
So what are you anticipating for that January, a work session about Kindlewood Phase 4?
So it won't be just Kindlewood Phase 4, but it'll definitely be Kindlewood Phase 4 because they are on a deadline situation for moving forward. So they need to have the clarity of, is the unit count reduction permissible or not? Is there going to be further cash invested or not? And then just to have the back and forth on the priority that you set out when you decided to redevelop the former property. Are you getting what you wanted to get for that? And if not, how do we reconcile that? That's really the question. But I'm imagining that we're going to have to identify additional priorities. I am concerned, I've been alerted by the continuum of care that by federal action, our permanent supportive housing program is in peril for financial support. They were going to be going to court. The court item was pulled, so there's no resolution now. And that in itself means that there's probably going to be an interruption of funds in a bigger way. And if we don't get those funds, then that's going to be a loss. And there's roughly 32 people, I think is the number that I heard, that would be left without any direct assistance. And I would think that that would be a priority for you to consider backfilling some portion of that until the feds settle down and resolve whatever the impact is likely to be. But that would be our,
That's Crossings 1 getting defunded?
I don't know exactly how it's spent. I just know the numbers because I was given the alarm bell on that, as well as we know that we have other priorities that are coming in relation to SNAP benefits, and a few of our local nonprofits appear to be having financial difficulties as well.
And then what, if anything, are you?
In the homeless space, I should prioritize.
What, if anything, are you anticipating for the conversation around CISRAP?
For CISRAP, I think where we are is we're comfortable with the program continuing, which is why we brought the item forward. As I said, my thought was that we would be looking to indicate to you a desire to increase the amount of funding, so therefore we could reach more people. I don't think that is the case, that we would prioritize at this present time, because I think the discovery that we've made in regards to the number of households that have not been able to pay rent, even though, again, the financial evaluation that says your income supports your ability to pay this amount and that's not getting paid is a problem. And it's one that we need to try to figure out what's going on. It is not Kindlewood exclusively. It's happening with CRHA properties as well, and those that are outside of that. And the numbers are staggering, how much is not getting paid. Go ahead.
Yes. Just to add a little bit of additional detail. So staff is planning to initiate an evaluation of the CISRAP program in the first part of this year. So as Mr. Sanders said, we are recommending at this time to keep that funding at $900,000 a year. we may recommend changes to the program looking into next year. But there is additional funding in the program left over from last year that could potentially support an incremental increase. The consideration of the issues going on at Kindlewood, the delinquencies, in some ways we view that as a separate issue. So the SISREP evaluation could also include some recommendations for that, but just trying to create a distinction between SISREP and the questions of delinquencies at Kindlewood and CRHA.
And I
That
know,
was another way of saying, don't give us more money until we figure it out. I have done that too.
But then if we wanted more money, it would come out of CIP contingency.
Well, no, because we're building the budget, so we would just work it in.
So we would know before the budget how much we might want to adjust.
Not that.
So we are not recommending at this time to add more money through the CIP for SISRAP for fiscal year '27. If we come out of that evaluation at the end of this year and we identify opportunities to expand the program, it would likely include recommendations that are not only about funding, but also staff capacity, questions of, overall management of the program. Perhaps there is some opportunity to incrementally increase the scope and scale of that program, and we would look at existing sources of funding that we have, not any sort of new money. Now, the question of how we address delinquencies at Kindlewood and CRHA, that's kind of a separate conversation and something I think that we may consider in more detail in January.
and obviously, there could be a whole work session of discussion of it, but I think part of it is, as you mentioned, it's not just Kindlewood. This is pretty much all affordable housing that uses low-income housing tax credits because it's tied, the affordability is tied to the unit itself via the assigned area median income that is determined by LIHTC. And if it's not attached to a voucher, the price someone has to pay won't vary with their income. It will stay stuck in the unit at that price. And particularly during the pandemic, because AMI is calculated with CPI, their calculation exploded and what everyone had to pay went up, even if it didn't correspond to how much their income increased. So I just know it's an across-the-board problem we're going to have to confront. And then you look at the cost to bring a 60% AMI unit to 30% AMI is like $120,000 a unit, just to keep up with the paying the debt and associated costs with that unit. But next question, kind of related to that, is what kickstarted in large part the adoption of our affordable housing plan and the $10 million commitment was an intervention assessment tool that was created that estimated how many interventions, not necessarily new units, but just interventions across the board, would be needed to meet the existing affordable housing gap at different AMI levels as well. And that's how we got to 10 million. That was the estimated cost of about 3,300 interventions. Obviously, that was done in 2018, 2019. I think the cost of that today, if you just adjusted for construction cost inflation, would be $15 million. So we've already lost ground. But the Housing Advisory Committee recently was discussed if on their own they updated that intervention assessment tool for current data, and that was available as a resource to kind of look at proposed investments, compare it against the interventions we need, compare it against what AMI levels it touches, which AMI levels it doesn't touch. Is that something that staff would potentially be interested in having them do and utilize? Because their concern was they spend the time to do it, but then there's no desire to kind of rely on that tool.
We very much appreciate the Housing Advisory Commission's interest in providing us with tools that we can use as a data point to inform investment consideration. So yes, thank you for highlighting that as an opportunity.
Mm-hmm. And I'll add that I needed her to say that just because I've already told them that I wanted them to update the tool. Because I was curious, because I know that it was done a long time ago. And at this point, it's a data point. Even though we have additional analysis work, it would be great to have as much of that as we can possibly get our hands on.
Mm-hmm. And I think part of the discussion is going to have to include that we've lost ground since our affordable housing plan was adopted just because of inflation, and the pandemic was not normal inflation. It was very atypical and very high. So if we want to achieve our original goals, you're talking about a meaningful amount above $10 million annually. So we need to be adding to it as much as we can. And I'll just end with a comment that I think, all this is so important because we're a community that's very divided by income. It's very divided in who has a 4-year college degree and who doesn't. And as just one stat that I think is very, strikes me is that the median black household in Charlottesville is at 50% of area median income, about $44,000 a year in income. The median white household is more than double that. And these interventions we're talking about, what are investments and strategies that aren't even providing an opportunity for the average black household in Charlottesville? What strategies are? Who do we miss? Who do we not miss? What parts of our community are maybe not as vocal in attending work sessions, in planning meetings historically, who we've overlooked in our planning processes? And I think what we've done is there's a lot more to do, but the reason we're investing $10 million a year is because reaching so many of our community members requires social housing, and it's very expensive and it's very complex, but it's the only way we're going to provide housing opportunities for them, because these are housing options that don't make a profit. So they're only going to exist if we do that. And I think it's also important just to highlight that there's a lot more to do. These are very complex projects that we can improve, but we've spent more per capita than any other locality in Virginia, one of the highest in the country. And I think for community members who I think rightly can say we need to do more, it's not enough, I think it's important to see that we've done a lot and it takes time to build, but otherwise I think it's easy to think, well, what's the point? But we really have seen a transformative change in how we invest in what we do. But there's a long way to go, and I hope we just don't lose sight of the importance of this. Final comment is, I think I do worry we've maybe backslid a little bit on planning for purchasing of land, which I do think is really, really important, because all affordable housing development is going to start with having access to land, and maybe it takes several years for the funding to come together, but if they can get that land, it can happen. If they don't have it, it never can. And as you highlighted, we know there's some low-income housing tax credit properties with affordability periods that are expiring soon. And to me, that's a 5-alarm fire. That's a crisis. These are hundreds of people at immediate risk of having their lives upended and never being able to afford to stay in Charlottesville again. And I think we've got to prioritize being able to stop that from happening and planning for it, and long-term having a really coherent strategy for land acquisition. And I know for the moment we've kind of abandoned the land bank idea. I'm certainly open to other ways that are high impact for land acquisition. The program to provide a funding gap is just not nearly expansive to fill, that need of land acquisition. So I do worry about that. And
Okay.
I'll just end. The Carlton Mobile Home Park, just to humanize it, that was a long saga with a lot going into it. One of the families there had lived there for decades, and in conversations people had with them, their husband was terminally ill and dying, and the last months of their life they had to worry about, how am I going to prevent being homeless? How am I going to have to find a place to live? In that moment of their life, people who had worked the jobs that keep this community running their whole lives, that's what a local government has the power. We have the power to upend people's lives to that extent. We also have the power to help people's lives in that kind of situation. And I just hope we keep that kind of human element of the importance of this in the front of our minds.
Thank you. Natalie?
Thanks. I really appreciate seeing all of this at once. It's good to get that list of, what's coming online, what have we already invested in, and kind of seeing that all together, because as Michael said, we have done a lot, and unfortunately construction takes time. So things are going to fall into place as those units get finished. There is, I think you also made another really good point, that this is expensive. It costs a lot of money, and so we have to be on the lookout for ways that we can increase our revenue for these types of projects, whether that's general fund transfers or specific affordable housing fund input. So to that end, when we got our presentation back in August at the retreat, where it said that the city was at our fiscal stress limit, then we have to think about how can we bring in revenue that is outside money, which is being enthusiastic about people who are interested in building additional housing that's market rate, to make sure that the real estate taxes we generate go up, to also provide more housing opportunities for people to shift and climb that ladder. I know we're gonna have a discussion next year about shaping locations a little differently maybe than we are now. So I'm open to, talking about that, but in general, citywide, that's something we need to support, both to create more additional units and to increase revenue that we can spend on these specific projects, which are dedicated to helping people stay where they are, or let them come back. That's really all I have to say for now, is we can do both things. Dedicated affordable housing that has subsidy costs, and allowing market rate housing to help fund all of that and increase tax revenue, not just in real estate taxes, but in other things that people spend in the city. Thanks.
Thank you. Lloyd?
When I was on the board of Piedmont Housing Alliance now a decade ago, one of the discussions that we were having at that point was suggesting that Phase 4 of what is now Kindlewood might be something other than housing, simply so that they could develop some income so that they could keep their own processes going better. Has that now been abandoned?
Do you have any sense on that? I would say yes, because I think they need the site now to be able to produce the number of required units.
So, for the record, Brenda Kelly. I haven't had any recent discussions with PHA, but yes, at one point they were talking about some commercial uses, some market rate units on the site, but I don't know if there's been changes to that discussion recently.
Okay.
It hasn't been a feature of it being anything but housing units at this time.
I wonder whether that's because it's their expectation that that's what we might want, and whether we ought to have some other thoughts about, just as I've tried to encourage CRHA to work in some kind of revenue generating use of some of their properties, mixed use kind of a situation, whether we ought to try to do that, encourage that out of PHA. Again, recognizing that the way that the feds have structured public housing is it's always going to run a deficit. And clearly, if we're going to not have it always run a deficit, either the city's got to keep anteing up money every time we turn around, or else they've got to figure out a way to make some money of their own.
We can get that part of the update for that conversation, though, just to be able to tell you that.
Thank you.
So, I just want to clarify, there is a commercial component to Phase 4.
There is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I just checked.
Okay. Live. There you go. There is a commercial component.
Other comments?
Nope.
I don't have any right now. You have any?
Nope, just more work to do.
Yes, thank you all so much. It's good information. If there's no other action or comments now, we will go into closed session. Do we?
Pursuant to Section 2.2-3712 of the Virginia Code, I move that the City Council close this open meeting and convene in a closed session as authorized by the Virginia Freedom of Information Act as follows. Pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.23711A1, for discussion and consideration of prospective candidates to be appointed to the following boards and/or committees: the Board of Zoning Appeals, Charlottesville Affordable Housing Fund Committee, Charlottesville Albemarle Convention and Visitors Bureau Board, Charlottesville Redevelopment and Housing Authority Board, Community Development Block Grant and Home Task Force, Historic Resources Committee, Housing Advisory Committee, Human Rights Commission, Local Board of Building Code Appeals, Minority Business Commission, Personnel Appeals Board, Piedmont Family YMCA Board of Directors, Sister Cities Commission, Social Services Advisory Board, Thomas Jefferson Water Resources Protection Foundation, the Towing Advisory Board, Tree Commission, Vendor Appeals Board, and Youth Council.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All
Yes.
opposed, please say no. Okay, the motion passes 5-0. We will be back at 6:30.